Part 2 of What Do You Want? Part 1 down below. I saw what I saw, I know who it was with, and I do personally know the guy. All asking her detailed information about him is going to do is set her off and be counterproductive. If I really need, I know where to find the guy. Whether she want to admit and own what she did doesn't really matter, we both know something happened. She knows what I've seen and she knows I have a picture of her phone showing it. I just want the lies and the secrecy to stop and see if we can do something to fix our relationship, if for no other reason that my son grows up in a house with both parents present. I also think that would cause a lot of problems in the post-marital relationship. Whether we stay together or split, we're still going to be in each other's lives for the next 12 years or so because of our son. It'll be hard enough on him if we split. It'll be even worse if there's more animosity, tension, and hate over custody. I just don't feel that fighting for full custody is worth the effect it could have on him. I'm not in denial, I know it happened. As far as how far it went, I have no solid proof. I have seen texts from a week or two ago asking where he'd been because she hadn't heard from him in a month or so. I have taken action, but I want to be really careful about how it all affects my son. I know it sounds dumb, but I value him and his feelings much more than I value my own. But I am at the point where if I don't get answers when we talk next, I am letting her know and I'm getting a lawyer involved. Even if I don't follow through with the divorce, maybe the reality of the lawyer involved and the real threat of divorce will change something. All of her friends have told me that they know she doesn't want to get a divorce, which is what makes all of this make even less sense. It hasn't felt like a marriage in over a year. But after 13 years of marriage, 15 years together, building a life, a home and a family, I don't feel that 2 bad years are worth throwing it all away without at least an effort on both parts. If ultimately we do split, at the very least we can say we tried. And regardless of any of that, we'll still be in each other's lives for at least the next 12 years because of our son. Why still have the same animosity and tension that we have now then? Her proposal has been to just keep going and see if things fell back into place. For the most part, things have been good over the last 5 to 6 months. It was only the last month or so that I noticed her withdrawing herself again, and I don't know why. I don't know what happened to make her withdraw again. All she tells me when I ask is that she's tired. Her friends don't know why either or understand. All I'm looking for is an understanding of what's going on. And although her friends have told me that she doesn't want to get divorced, if that's what she really does want, fine. Just tell me, at least that would make sense. I don't plan on going anywhere unless it's due to a separation agreement or divorce. When things first got bad, she did ask me to leave for a week because she felt she needed some time alone, and I did. When I came back, things were good. There was no fighting or arguments, but there was also no talk of our problems. There was talk about me possibly leaving again when I first came back if she felt she needed more time, and I told her no, that the only way I was leaving again would be when the papers were signed. I've always talked to her friends from time to time on things about us, so it's not like I'm begging them for help. The issue with his last name is that I'm not friends with anyone on his team. Yes, I know them and we all hang around after games, but I don't have their numbers to call. We tried counseling. She lasted 3 sessions before she said she wasn't going back because she didn't believe in it. We are going to talk this week about things. Depending on how that goes, it's a strong chance she will get served. As far as boundaries, we need to straighten things out and be on a somewhat level playing field first. I am friends with the people on my team. The issue is that they know these people because of my wife. They're not friends with them. Like me, they only hang around after games with the crowd. And to add to that, my wife is the one who started our team. It's made up of people she works with, her friends and their husbands. Any snooping around in the volleyball crowd for info would get back to my wife. And not only that, but it would also most likely end with no results, as the only people who would have the information I want are his friends. I know that things don't just fall back into place. That was her approach to it. I've been telling her over and over again that it takes an effort from both of us, and she keeps saying that she doesn't know how she feels and that she's unsure about our relationship. So more interesting information that just adds to the question of what's going on with my wife and why is she thinking and acting the way she has been. I just spoke to her mother. Now I know that she hasn't said anything about our problems to her parents at all. And I would never say anything to them, although I have been thinking about it. But her mother told me that she hasn't returned any of her calls since last week. She used to speak to her every day, sometimes twice a day. She's an only child and her parents mean the world to her. I just don't understand what's going on in my wife's head right now. I know she needs to make choice. I also know that I can't keep living like this. But there's still our son to consider. The last thing I want is him growing up without me around. If it wasn't for him, I'd most likely be gone by now. The first time it happened, I put it behind us after we spoke about it. We had talked about mine at great lengths. I told her and showed her everything she asked. And after talking about her first, I had to go with my gut that it never got physical. We both needed to put those behind us if there was going to be any chance of trying to fix things. And I did think about how she would have felt justified about it. But I know that very shortly after I confronted her about that one that it stopped. The number didn't show up on the text logs again, no new numbers were showing up that I didn't know, and her data usage went back to normal. Call it naive or anything else, all of the previous indicators were gone, so I had no reason to think otherwise. Now with this latest one, she's told me that she's not going to stop speaking to him because he is a friend. But that also could have just been said out of anger, as I don't see any real suspicious activity on the phone records now. Her and my son have been away the past few days with friends because of school being closed, so we haven't had a chance to have a real conversation about all of it. Every time we've talked about it, it's either been an argument or led to one. So, it's going to all come down to the next conversation we have about it, what she says, her reactions and mannerisms while we're talking. But either way, everything that's been said so far has been out of anger or emotion. A decision to break up a family and everything we've built over the last 15 years needs to be made under calm or somewhat calm and understanding conditions. I openly called her friends about this incident, yes. Typically, it's more casual when I talk to her friends about us. More like when we get together in a group, it will come up in conversation of how things are going. Yes, I was taken back that she was talking to this guy about our relationship. He's not a close friend or even really portrayed as a close friend. He's a guy we hang around with at volleyball. If he was someone who knew both of us and has seen our interactions together and knew us, it would be different. I'm not playing a double standard. I think it's more that since I had an EA, I know. I never meant to have one. Casual conversation just led to it. I know firsthand how it starts and what it can lead to, so yes, I'm a little more on guard about it. I know what I did was wrong, I regret what I did, and I'm the one who needs to live with that every day. And yes, because of being upset and angry by all this, I wanted to get as much dirt on the situation as possible. Who wouldn't? Right now, it's more about seeing what we can do to resolve all of it and try and save the marriage and the family. I know from my own experiences how it starts and why it starts. I also know from my own EA that it is possible to not cross that line to a PE in regard to my wife. I've seen what I've seen as far as evidence, her reactions, and what she said. I also know that everything that's been said about it so far has been while both of us were angry and emotional. Nothing rational ever comes out when emotions are taking over. Like I've said before, there's evidence that says this was a PA and there's evidence that says it was only a EA until we cool off and have a real talk about nothing can really be resolved. Yes, I have doubts on if it was or wasn't a PA, which is why I'm not going to just throw away 15 years and break up my family over a hunch, no matter how strong of a hunch it may be. There is no solid proof that there was a PA. It wouldn't hold up in divorce court as adultery. Yes, I can file for divorce and not follow through to try and shock her into remorse, but that's a last resort. If I push and push by doing something, it'll only push her further away and nothing will ever be resolved. Splitting up or not, we're going to be in each other's lives for at least 12 more years because of our son, and there's no reason there should be the same animosity and tension after a divorce that there was during our marriage. When I first confronted her, she was apologetic. The next conversation was heated and she told me that she did nothing wrong, it was only a text. Since every conversation turned into a fight, I decided to let things cool down a little before we speak again. But yes, I want to hear her explanation of why she feels she did nothing wrong. It's the same as what I did when I had a EA. I know, she knows that I know, she put me through the same thing. I chose to have a cool down period before the conversation. Worst case is we get divorced. Do I want that? No, but I am ready for that. But I'm not about to break up my family and throw away the last 15 years of my life basically on a hunch. That's not being gullible, naive, or anything else. It's being level-headed and realistic. Open-ended threats, ultimatums, or demanding she do or change something will only push her further away. If she really wants to fix things, she'll do it on her own, and there will be signs either way. My guard is not being let down at all, but showing her my guard is up won't make things any easier either. She knows me and she knows the way I am. She knows I'll be watching. We'll just have to see how it goes. I've had and have been caught having an EA. I've caught her now twice, and I've caught her early on into them. I know the signs and I know what to look for, and even though I'm staying rational about it all, I'm not letting my guard down. If I find the slightest evidence of once again, there'll be no talking about it. That will be the end. We all make mistakes in life, some bigger than others. I've made mine and she's made hers. But not having any real evidence of a physical affair, jumping straight to divorce is tough since there are no legal grounds on emotional affairs. I can't make the choice for her of whether she wants to talk about things or try to work them out. Only she can do that. I've made my choice. It's either we talk about everything while being completely open and honest, and we both actively try to work on things, or we divorce. Those are her options and she needs to pick one. Sure, talking and trying to fix things may still lead to divorce, but only time will tell. I know that the first one stopped. The number stopped showing up on her phone records and her data usage went back to normal. The second one was discovered just last week. Since the confrontation, her phone records have gone back to normal usage. I know the indicators, that's why I suspected and discovered the second. If it happens again, yes, I'm done. The problem with divorce over EA is there's no legal grounds for it and could cause issues when it comes to property and custody battles. There is already GPS on the car and has been for some time with no suspicious activity, and I monitor her cell usage very closely. I know what's been going on. I've had my own EA and been caught. I know there are incriminating texts, either about the affair or about me, and that's why she won't show me. But the fact still remains that out of everything I've seen, heard and whatever, there is no evidence of a PA, and as much as divorce may be completely warranted, there are no legal grounds for it. If I were the one to file, then it's me wanting out of the marriage, which means my rights to property, custody, and everything else drop considerably. At this point, I need to just see what happens and how things go, play the game smart. All filing for divorce with no real proof and no mutual agreement from her will do is hurt me financially and emotionally because of my son, not to mention hurt him by putting him through it. Since I got over getting caught in my own emotional affair, and yes, I say got over, I did start to emotionally reconnect with her. Even though I was emotionally connected to her, just not as much. And she very well may be justifying her own actions because of mine. The one thing about my emotional affair was there was never any expectation or even idea that we would ever actually meet in real life. I met her playing an online virtual reality game. She lives 1,000 miles away and she's a single mom with a young kid. I looked at the whole affair as just a way of having that feeling of love and being wanted that I wasn't getting from my wife. And yes, as things progressed, I did think about wanting to see her, but also realized how that would be nearly impossible given the circumstances. When my wife found out about my emotional affair, I explained all of this to her and she did seem to understand my points. I never said that anything I did was right or that my reasoning was even right, but that was my thinking at the time. I didn't feel I was being unfaithful to my marriage because there was nothing physical about my affair. What bothers me about hers the most is that even though she says there was nothing physical, which may be true because from what I can tell I found out about it in the early stages of it, being that we live within a 30 to 40 minute drive from him, the chance of it becoming physical was 100% there. If it had gone on long enough, everyone knows that talk leads to feelings. Feelings lead to thoughts and it just snowballs from there. But honestly, I don't think I would have or could have followed through with a physical affair if mine had led in that direction. And because of that, I wouldn't feel comfortable in an open marriage. I mean, if that was the case, I wouldn't be here. I ended mine right away. But from what I can see on cell phone records, she hasn't spoken to him since shortly after the confrontation. Whether they have just gone quiet for a while until things cool down, I don't know. But that will only be revealed over time. And as much as there is concrete evidence that there was an emotional affair, there is no real evidence that it ever turned physical. I'm not trying to spin anything here. As much as I may react to things, I don't make decisions based on hunches, especially when it comes to breaking up my family. One of my biggest issues in my current situation is that no matter how I present the question, my wife doesn't want to address our problems yet. From what I've seen, heard from friends, she doesn't want to get a divorce, but she also doesn't want to talk to me about our problems. I've realized that trying to fix my problems, going back to the little things years and years ago, I've become the nice guy. That never was me. I was never a bad guy, but I was never the nice guy. As much as over the last year I haven't been holding things back, in some ways I've been pulling back way too much. Now don't take this the wrong way, I'm not filing for divorce. Just yet. But I'm also not going to live life worrying about what she thinks of me anymore either. I'm still going to see how things go with my marriage, but on my terms. I've made mistakes, said and done the wrong things at the wrong times, but who hasn't? She has made the same mistakes if not more. If she can't find a reason to want me for me, too bad. And if the divorce happens, it happens. It really doesn't matter at this point anyway. What I have to lose is my family and all the time I spend with my son. We do a lot together and have a lot of fun and laughs. Though all the problems we've had, when I get upset and depressed to the point of giving up, it's always his face, smile, laughter and the time we spend together that makes me want to keep trying. I know it shouldn't be and I'm wrong for thinking this way, but I am. He's a great kid, and I've seen what's happened to the kids of friends of ours who have gotten divorced. Even in the friendliest of divorces, it still affects young kids in a big way, and I don't want that for my son. Since everything has happened 2 weeks ago, things have improved. Our relationship is civil again. We're actually talking about random things and life in general more than we have in a very long time. We've been spending more time around each other and things have been good. I have still been monitoring her cell phone activity and there has been no contact with the other man. I, as well as others I've spoken to about this, still don't feel that there was a physical affair. We all could be wrong, but there is no real evidence of that at all. I have decided to just start living life for me and just let things cool down. Like I said, at this point it really doesn't matter whether we get divorced now or see how things play out over the next couple months. I do have a problem with reacting to things, which is what seems to upset her and make her shut down and say nothing. Maybe some cool down time and then small conversations about individual problems will lead to a bigger conversation and her opening up. We did have a disconnect years ago that both of us realized but did nothing about. Yes, both of us have had and been caught for having emotional affairs. I still feel that if we can just build our communication level back up, that things can be worked out and resolved. Whether that resolution is divorce or staying together, we still need to build our relationship back up for our son's sake if for nothing else. One of the things I've realized is that this is what's become of me pretty much since my son was born 6 years ago. Now no, it didn't happen all at once, but it started happening slowly. My wife did have a rough pregnancy, 10-week bed rest prior to the birth and some depression afterward. I realized that me wanting to help her and prove that I was going to be a good father is what started my slide to be a nice guy. As other problems came up, I'd say or do things to try and fix them or make her feel better about them. When I didn't think those things were working, I'd try something else. This trend continued and I became more and more focused on our relationship and trying to make her happy than I did on myself. The funny thing that I realize now is that my wife has been telling me this exact thing the entire time, but I just didn't understand it. I always just felt she was being critical of me. I mean, why else would helping her out or putting things I wanted to get done aside so I could do something with her for the family? I didn't get it. And honestly, the example stories in Chapter 4 were my relationship to a T. I tried to do what I thought she wanted, she would withdraw, and I would get upset she felt distant and would withdraw myself. It created a perfect storm on both sides of the relationship and just snowballed from there. Now that our relationship is virtually non-existent, the last year has been both of us looking for what we were missing that we once had. Now I still don't think that her affair ever was physical, for many reasons. But through all the years of both of us trying to fix things, we were really just pushing things further apart. Can it now be fixed the right way? I don't know. I don't think there is any one right way to do it. Do I think it's at least worth a try? Absolutely. We don't hate each other. In a group or family setting, we're the almost perfect pair. We both still do agree that we work well together, that we love each other and that we care for each other, but we're just not in love. So why not take some time, forget about any and all expectations of each other, live our lives and see what happens? As far as a definite plan, I don't have one just yet. But I do feel that telling this to my wife, that I finally understand what she's been saying all these years, that will open the door to start finally trying to actively work through everything. And even if it doesn't work out, we've both basically been living in purgatory for the last year, what, another couple months to see if it makes a difference. So just an update on things. The past couple weeks I've made the stance that I'm going to take back my life. Other than our problems, affairs, and whatever else, what I've realized is that since our problems started, I have slowly turned myself into the nice guy. I've been trying to fix something that I don't have the tools to fix, and in doing so pushed us further apart. I have not withdrawn myself from the marriage or anything like that, but I have been putting my wants in front of hers. Surprisingly, over the last couple weeks I have seen a difference in her behavior, a positive one. Things almost seem normal again, which is nice. I have not let my guard down at all, and I don't plan to. As I've said before, there is conflicting evidence as to what has actually happened. As of now, I have no real proof that anything ever turned physical, so if I want to try and move forward with things, I need to treat it as nothing more than an emotional affair, the same as I had. If new information comes up that proves otherwise, then I'll take it from there. I just don't see a point in staying angry or upset about something I don't know for sure and have no real way of proving. It's not healthy for me, what's left of my marriage, or my son. That being said, we did finally have a conversation about what I found a few weeks back. It was a real conversation, no yelling, no raised voices, just an adult conversation. I said what I had to say, made my points, explained my feelings, and left it at that. She did admit that she was wrong, said again how it never went further than a text, and explained that it was the lack of expectations to have to follow through with what she said in the text that lead to them. She apologized again for what she did, and I apologized again for the things I've done. As tense as things did feel during and after the conversation, within an hour it felt that all the tension was almost gone and conversations were normal, about everyday and random things. Are all of our problems fixed? No. Do I trust her completely? No. Does she trust me completely? Probably not. But it does feel like the air has been cleared, and in the first time in a long time I have seen a real effort from her to work on things. Communication has improved, we've been spending more time with each other, mostly as a family, but it's still better than it's been. Like I've said, the last thing I want is a divorce. I do love her, I know she does love me, and I don't want to put my son through the pain of his parents splitting up, so I'm just going to roll on from here. I'm going to keep my guard up, address any issues or questions that come up instead of jumping to conclusions and accusation, and we'll just see what comes from it. Another update on my situation. This past weekend I was going to a friend's with our son. She didn't want to go, saying she was exhausted from work and just wanted to go to the gym, go home to take a bath and just pass out. I had no problem with this. I didn't really want her coming to begin with. I extended the invitation to her just to show that I wasn't trying to exclude her from my life. That being said, something just didn't feel right for some reason. Nothing had happened and there was no real trigger for it, but something just felt off. My son and I were going to a friend's house that was more than an hour drive from my house, so she knew I wouldn't be home until very late. So, I planted a VAR in the bedroom and asked a good friend of mine who knows the situation to pass by the house around 9 to 9:30. I told him to just take a look for any cars that looked out of place and gave him the description of the man who she had been texting with the car. When we got to my friend's place, I texted her that we made it there safe and asked her how the gym was. She replied back that she didn't go to the gym and was going over to a friend's house to watch a movie and relax. So, my plan A had been foiled. Time for plan B. I text my friend who was going to pass my house and tell him this and give him the friend's address and ask if he'd pass by there and see if the car was there. He says no problem and I go about my night. Around 9 he texts me, her car isn't there. I text him back asking if he's sure. The house is on a hill and there's a long driveway, so I ask him if he's sure the car wasn't at the top of the driveway. He says he's not sure and it's possible and he's going to go back. 15 minutes later another text from him, definitely not there. Now I'm pissed but trying not to show it. I had sent my wife a picture of our son with all my friends' kids earlier in the night because she had asked me to, but she hadn't responded to the text. A little while later my friend's wife says to me, her not knowing about any of this, that she must have gone home and fallen right to sleep because she hadn't replied to any of her texts. So now the blood is boiling, lol. I finally get a text from her asking how my night's going and that she's heading home shortly. I say fine and ask her how the movie was. She tells me the name of the movie they watched, that they sat around having girl talk, and told me about a conversation that she had with her friend's 2 daughters. So, I'm about to blow up at this point because I know it's all a lie. I know she was never at the friend's house. So, I text back something like sounds fun and I go on with my night. A little while later she texts that she had just gotten home, and then texts me, thank you handsome. I had left a wrapped bottle of wine and bubble bath on the counter for her when I left for the night. I thought it would be a nice little gesture. Then she texts asking what time we're leaving to head home and say I'm not sure yet. Then another asking if we're sleeping there and I say no. So now my head is going even more. Why all these questions about when I'm coming home? So, we get home about 2 hours after all that and she's asleep. I put my son to sleep and walk into our room. No movement from her at the sound of me walking around the room, so I walk over and look at her phone. I don't know the code, so all I can see is the closed home screen, but I can see that there is a WhatsApp message from about an hour ago, so now I'm pissed again. I lay down and try to fall asleep but can't. She wakes up at one point, we start talking about our nights and she asks me what's wrong. So, I tell her that something had felt off about the night, so when I got home, I looked at her phone and saw a message there. I asked her who it was from and if she was still talking to him. She said no, and she looked at the phone and said the message was from her uncle, but still refuses to show me the phone. I'm tired and don't want to get into it, so I go to sleep. The next night we go out for a friend's birthday and she has way too much to drink. I had been doing some research earlier that day on ways to possibly get into her phone and look around myself, and I found one. When we got home that night, she passed out almost immediately. Being that I had had a few drinks myself, I guess my beer muscles kicked in, so I grabbed the phone and got it unlocked. I took it downstairs and started looking through everything. I looked at WhatsApp first since I knew that was how she was communicating with the guy. Nothing there. I was relieved. I knew that even if she had been deleting the messages, if there were any, that she was too drunk that night to have been able to think about deleting them, and I hadn't even seen her look at her phone in hours. So, I start looking through texts with the friend she said she was with Friday night. Well, it turns out that they were together, but they went out to a restaurant together. I even found a selfie of the two of them. So, no, I'm thinking, why lie about where she was? It didn't make any sense. They went to a restaurant that we go to frequently and many of our friends go to, so I know she wouldn't have had him meet them there. It was too risky. So why lie? I also found a lot of texts with other friends about the situation with this other guy, and everything did point to the fact that nothing ever happened and it was just a text. So unless she's lying to everyone, even her closest friends, I do believe that nothing happened outside of the texts. But it still bothers me. Why lie about where she had been? So, Monday morning the texts start, accusing me of having a GPS on her car. I tell her that I don't, and she basically calls me a liar. She knew I had gotten a GPS tracker a while back because she found it while snooping around. So, I tell her where it is in the house and to go look for herself. Then she accuses me of getting another one so that I can show her the one and make her think there's nothing on the car when there really is. I tell her she's acting ridiculous and there's nothing on the car. So now I'm thinking, she knows that I know she wasn't where she said she was Friday night, but how? So, then she starts bringing up old arguments and accusing me of telling all of my friends that she had an affair. I tell her that I haven't told anyone that she had an affair. Yes, I've talked to some friends about our problems, but not about that. So, at the same time as her texting me all these accusations, I'm texting with another friend about all this and what she's saying. My friend's response to all this, she's baiting you. She's trying to get you to snap and admit to spying on her. Drop the conversation right now. So, I tell my wife that this is all ridiculous and exactly what we both agreed we wouldn't do anymore, and that if she wants to talk about us and our relationship later tonight I will, but I'm done with all this right now. It's just stupid. She sent a couple texts after that, but I didn't respond. When I got home that night, before her, I took the GPS, put it in its box and left it on her night table. When she got home, I tried to avoid her. I said hi to her, but that was pretty much it. As the night went on, she did talk to me a little and I would answer her, but that was it. I stayed away from conversations. Later that night when I went upstairs, I noticed that the box with the GPS and it was gone. Honestly, I don't care where it is, but I know she saw it and that I silently proved her wrong about her accusations. Since then, things have been civil around the house. We were even joking around and laughing about something the other night, something that hasn't happened in a while. But it still bothers me. Why did she lie about Friday night when it was something so innocent? Why all the accusations about everything? Is she testing me to see if she can piss me off to the point of admitting to spying and knowing more than I'm letting on that I know? It's just bizarre. I have listened to the VARs and there has been nothing. There was one conversation with a friend of hers. I cross-referenced the call log for her cell to see who she was talking to, and they were talking about how she thinks I'm making a bigger deal out of all this than it is, and how all it was an unsolicited text that she barely entertained. She knows that I know she was texting him with WhatsApp, and yes, she could have deleted the messages. But the night I got into the phone, I know she hadn't looked at her phone for at least an hour before I got a hold of it, so as they are still talking, he didn't send any messages or they really have stopped talking. Like I said, from what I saw on the phone the other night, there were texts with friends talking about it, but they were all about how I'm making a big deal out of unsolicited text from him. So, it's one of two things: either all it was harmless flirting during regular everyday conversation and him just crossing the line and trying to make a move, or I caught things in time before they did become physical. Either way, my radar is still up and I'm still going to investigate anything that comes up, but for now I just have to see how things play out. My comment, Part 3 ending coming today. Let's see, is OP all talk, or he will perform some action? I believe he will. We will see. See you in the afternoon ending.